You are listening to the BillyDees podcast. We are waiting just a minute for everyone to engage the live stream. Remember, you can find the BillyDees podcast on your favorite platform.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. All the people on X. That's kind of where the show kind of centers. We're on a number of different platforms today, including Rumble, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So I'll welcome to all of you if you happen to be on that. We also just wait just a moment for, especially since we're on so many platforms, just a few moments for everybody to lock in on the live stream. With me is Shamanisis. Shaman, how are you?
Woo-hoo. Hey, Billy. I'm doing amazing, actually. It's been a good week.
Well, good. Yeah, I noticed the event and everything that you had the pictures from. The pictures and everything were fantastic. So that's
Yeah, it
great.
was a great event. It was fun to talk in depth about the book and the background of the book. That was really cool. So yeah, great event. Go check out Hearts of Gold. Great charitable organization.
Absolutely, it is fantastic. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the podcast started. If you're new to the program, obviously we live stream as we're producing the podcast. I record the audio separately, and later the podcast version will be available on all the major podcast platforms. A lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. I'm going to pause just a moment and do the intro. All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the program. Absolutely great having you here. If you've never checked us out before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. Thursday nights we go live and we talk about current events. And most of the time that centers around politics. My co-host is Shamanisis. Shaman, welcome. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Billy. Thanks for asking. Glad to
Yes.
be here. Let's fire some people up with some truth.
Yes, let's fire them up. Also, if you are new, we are not a partisan program per se. There's a lot of times when we are very critical of Republicans, very critical of Democrats, and sometimes both. Independents, whoever it may be, but we're not one of these programs that's going to get on our high horse and just throw out a bunch of talking points about how terrible the other side is. We are going to, nonetheless, though, being that it's politics, we could say some things that you don't agree with, and that's fine. You can tweet us. Our screen names are in the X posting if you would like to do that, and you can tweet at us. We can't always respond during the show. Sometimes afterwards, we'll throw out a few responses. And on the other platforms, too, you're more than welcome to make a comment. Lot happening. There's a lot happening.
You think?
Yes.
It's a very spicy year. It has been fun to do this show with you, Billy, during this election year.
Yeah, it's been great to work with you as well. We're going to talk a little bit about this Trump trial, and we're also going to talk a little bit about Biden. And this is kind of interconnected with international events, with what's going on with Iran and everything right now. There's a lot impacting that. What's going on with Israel is also impacting the election. It's impacting the media here. And it's interesting how this stuff gets packaged up. It's very, very interesting. Let's start a little bit with the Trump trial. Now, as I said at the top of the show, I'll speak for myself here, and Shaman can too. I was never a Trump guy. Even in 2016, I was not a Trump guy. In 2020, I was very disenchanted with the process. I really was not big on either one of those guys, Biden or Trump, and I'm still not.
I don't think anybody is, if they were really being honest.
No, and I've said this line before. I'll say it again because I think it's a good line. I don't know where I picked this up, but if you think Biden, if you're one of these people that says Biden is better than Trump, my response to that is that's kind of like shitting your pants, going home and changing your shirt. That's exactly what it's like. We could. I'll mention the RFK campaign because he is a viable option.
Yeah.
I've talked about before. 6 months ago, I didn't think Trump had too much of a chance to win the general election. I don't think that's true anymore. And also, I 6 months ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said RFK is a long shot, and I don't believe that anymore. I believe it's probably going to be an uphill climb for him, but I think the path is there. The next 2 months in particular,
Mm-hmm.
very interesting for RFK. Once he gets into the convention season and that starts rolling, if he's not really high up in the polls, then he might have an issue. But anyhow, that's another topic for another day. We'll talk about that more certainly. In regard to the Trump trial, I'm going to go ahead and play a clip that Trump, he made a statement here the other day before going into court, or I'm not exactly sure where it was.
He's so famous for his statements.
Yes, for his statements. Now, the audio is just a little off here because they did not have him mic'd, and it looked like it was like in a hallway or one of those places in a courthouse where there was a lot of cement. So it's a little echoey. But anyway, this is what Trump had to say about the campaign funds trial.
This is an assault on America. Nothing like this has ever happened before. There's never been anything like it. Every legal scholar said this case is nonsense. It should never have been brought. It doesn't deserve anything like this. There is no case, and they've said it. People that don't necessarily follow or like Donald Trump said this is an outrage that this case was brought. This is political persecution. This is a persecution like never before. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And again, it's a case that should have never been brought. It's an assault on America. And that's why I'm very proud to be here. This is an assault on our country. And it's a country that's failing. It's a country that's run by an incompetent man who's very much involved in this case. This is really an attack on a political opponent. That's all it is. So I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Actually, I think he's right about a lot of stuff.
Oh, no. We've said this from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It is absolute bullshit that this is even happening. The way that we treat our presidents will impact how we treat all future presidents.
Yes.
And the fact that the Democrats have danced all over a former president is going to come back to bite them in the ass. He's completely right. And frankly, he actually looks pretty good there.
Yes.
I kind of wondered if he'd had some work done. He looks like he's younged it up a little bit in the last couple weeks.
Yes, he might very well have. And let's take this step by step. I'm going to run through a few points here. And here again, I'm not a Trump guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're one of these persons, all right, good for him, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You're working right into the narrative and you're allowing yourself to be manipulated. If you're getting emotionally invested in any campaign, you are allowing yourself to be manitiated. That's exactly
it's not about the politics. If somebody's allowing external circumstances to
Sure.
affect their behavior, then it's about something going on in their own life.
Yes.
Anyway.
Okay. Here again, if you're anti-Trump, now listen to a few of these things. I did some research on this. About half the jurors have been dismissed because they admit they cannot be fair. Now, how can it be where that Trump trial is happening in New York, okay, that he can get a fair trial when his negative numbers, he's very unpopular in New York, is roughly 80%. So
it's a very democratic state.
Very democratic, yes. And actually, and keep in mind, when he was just a celebrity, he was loved there. When he was,
equally loved and hated. There, he was divisive even 20 years ago, but definitely more.
Yes, he was
respected in a funny way.
He was, because I'll tell you, when he was going after the mayor and all that stuff, and he was on the Oprah show, he was selling books. People were loving him. Okay, and I would say because of his father, he did have a little bit of a legacy there, which gave him an advantage in New York. But his negative numbers went through the roof when he became president there in New York.
Sure. Well, there's been a full-on assault on him from before he even became president.
Right. This campaign finance misuse or whatever. This is all because He's accused of paying what amounts to a porn star to keep quiet about an affair. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything right about that. There's anything wrong. There's anything right about cheating on your wife and all this other kind of stuff. We kind of went through this with Bill Clinton. I was more critical of that because with Bill Clinton, he picked on a subordinate. And I had friends who were police during that time, and they told me if they got caught with a subordinate, that's it. They're out right there. Pension and all, right out the door. And at least with Trump, he's involved with an adult sex worker who had nothing to do with being in government, had anything to do with being under his thumb. This was an independent adult sex worker, and he basically paid her off to spare presumably his wife hearing all the lurid details about what they did in the bedroom. And they somehow and I understand there's peripheral things. It's not so much what you did, but how you try to hide it and all this other stuff. But listen, that is the crime right there. Having sex with a sex worker. Okay. And they somehow parlayed that into 34 felony accounts. How can that be? 34 felony counts.
Well, they've been doing this to him, especially since they realized that he had a lot of sway that was causing some extreme thoughts within the American people. God forbid they actually think for themselves. That were really, I think that's really what it boils down to. Donald Trump can say whatever he wants, but if he's actually getting people to think, that's the big threat. Whether you agree with him or not, he did usher in a new era of getting people to step out of their comfort zone and actually see things.
Sure,
so they've been attacking him ever since, and I'm not a fan. I mean, I told people that I said I'll be shocked if he makes it 2 years through his presidency without imploding it with his mouth, because he has a tendency to say shit that's not true.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the level of which they have gone after him, while we know a lot of more very suspicious stuff has been going on with the president and his family, Hunter Biden being a huge part of it. And that story keeps getting buried and reburied. Every time it brings its head up, it gets reburied because it's not convenient to liberal media.
Yeah. Here again, what he said about this has never been done before in how old the country is, 250 years, something like that. They've chosen to indict a former president based on having sex with a sex worker.
Yeah. Well, they've chosen to sully the office of the president of America, the United States of America, for political reasons, and without giving a fuck, excuse my French, Billy, about how that is going to affect us on a global scale, as well as for all future presidents. Because don't think for a second they're not teaching other people what to do to presidents they don't like anymore.
Yeah. And by the way,
it's stupidity.
If you follow the international news, if you know around the world, most of the commentary is very critical of this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, around the world, there's leaders who have done some really bad shit, and I'll tell you, the United States is one of them. We've had some presidents do some really bad shit,
some seriously sketchy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like sending troops under false pretenses and gotten them killed and maimed and everything else, and they're choosing to indict a former president because he's fucked. Is basically what it is. And around the world, this is not playing well for the United States, because we get on our high horse and preach.
Yeah.
And here again, Alvin Bragg. This is, of all the things that Trump has done and said, this has got to be the biggest joke of them all. But Alvin Bragg, that's how he ran. He ran on the promise of a Trump prosecution. That's how he won, a good part of how he won his position. And I know there's people say, well, technically, Biden doesn't have anything to do with this. Blah, blah, blah. Listen, collusion in the corporate world is very hard to prove. And it's no different in politics, because there is no contract for collusion. A couple of people get together in the elevator and wink and a nod, and then the deal's done.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what is happening. This is election interference. They are deliberately dragging this out at
Blatantly.
the time when he is most likely to start getting the most support in springtime, heading into the
And
summer
the
convention.
stupid part of all of this, Billy, is that their behavior has actually made people that didn't support Trump begin to support Trump. They are literally the number one tool for promoting his political desires at this point, if you will.
Yeah.
His goals. His goals. They've actually done the opposite of what they intended because they did it so heavy-handed.
Yeah. Yeah, they're creating support for him. There was
Yeah.
one caveat to that, and I'll mention that here in a bit. But you got to understand that this here again, these 34 felony accounts, based on the fact that he had sex with a sex worker, is based on a violation of a campaign finance reform. Now, this campaign finance reform was something that when the feds checked this out 2 years ago, they couldn't really find any connection to it. That what Trump did was a connection to campaign finance reform violations. And the reason is that because none of this, no matter how you divvy it up, no matter what he paid this woman, it didn't get into the realm of doing something underhanded to get himself elected. And that's really what campaign finance, it was to prevent shenanigans from enormous corporations giving mountains of money to a campaign and shifting the books around so it didn't look like it. That's what this law is about. It has nothing to do with this type of bullshit. It has nothing to do with it.
And the interesting thing, go ahead, Billy, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, go ahead, finish your point.
No, it's interesting because what I don't think the Democrats really understand, and again, I'm for people who are listening, I am neither a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an independent, and because I've got just too disgusted with the extremes. Anyway, while the average person in America is struggling to pay rents, which have gone off the charts, to buy food, which has gone off the charts, they feel like they're being crippled by the very corrupt corporate greed that is really, I mean, it is, when you dig into it, Billy, it is shocking what they've been getting away with for the last few years.
Sure.
Simultaneously, that's been going on while our politicians, most of them, are doing nothing because they're being paid off by the same companies. And so the American people, the average person in this country, feels assaulted by the people who are in power, and they identify with Trump. So the Democratic Party has literally become the publicist for Donald Trump. That's what they've done without even realizing, because they couldn't think straight. And they do this extreme crap all the time where they force all these things to become the way that they want them to, and then they run in the other direction when it blows up. And it's going to be interesting because this is going to come back to bite them big time.
I believe it will, but there is a caveat to that. There's been some polling that has shown that if he is convicted, the chances here, again, from the research I've done, that he's going to do any jail time or anything like that are very small. But if he is convicted, he becomes a felon. And there is some polling that indicates that there's a lot of people who may be on the fence, who might still support him, but they're not so sure.
I don't believe in any polls because I've seen.
Okay, but the polling indicates whether you believe it or not. And we could talk about how true it is.
It makes sense that people would be like, I don't want to really vote for a felon.
There's a lot of people say that they would retract their vote once he becomes convicted. Now, I'm not so sure, because if the general feeling starts to become that this is a sham, and it very well could, as the details of this unfold. Now, they're not televising this or anything because they know it's bullshit. And to have the American public sit and listen to that bullshit all day long for the weeks and weeks and weeks that this is supposed to go on, would probably make the case that, well, I don't care whether he's a felon or not because this is bullshit. So, you can make the argument that it won't make a difference, but there's some polling that indicates that it will. And I would have to say, with 34 counts, they're bound to land on one. They're bound to land on one. Just playing the odds. You take 2 dice and roll them out. You may not get the number you need, but you take out 34 dice and roll them across the floor. You'll get the number that you need if you can pick out 2.
Right.
And I just feel that that could be a factor But I do agree that the martyrdom that's being created here is going to hurt them. And this is all because, and I talked about this in a podcast I did 2 weeks ago. This is all because that the Democrats do not have a candidate. Their only way that they're running is on Trump is bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what their base says. You talk to them, all they say is, well, I could never vote for Trump. They don't say, oh, I love Joe Biden.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's like that's actually a really good that's a really good point. They're not. And because they know they have a weak candidate. And I think it's like, let's not throw any spotlights on him. Let's just keep throwing the spotlights in the opposite direction. And all they've done is they keep creating PR opportunities for Trump, and they don't seem to realize that is what they've handed a master. Whether you agree with the way he goes about it or not, he's a master at getting attention and spinning things into just
Absolutely.
a shitstorm. And they've handed him all these opportunities leading up to the election to work his magic. And sometimes he hits and sometimes he doesn't, but he has another opportunity next week because they've got more cases coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
It's craziness. And meanwhile, the average American person is now paying 50% of their income in rent and 30% of their income for food, and they have no money to do anything else with. And corporate greed's not going away, even though there's no actual reason for it. We have real issues that need to be addressed. Instead, we're spending all of our time in the media, and our politicians are spending all their time pointing at each other, and it's just ridiculous.
I mean, you look at what's going on. They're already talking about the Speaker of the House, trying to get him out of there again. Now, they just did that. So here again, what are they actually doing besides playing with themselves? You got a bunch of people in the House and the Senate who, quite frankly, are sitting around in a big circle jerk. Is exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. And while there's these wars raging, and while there's police officers getting beaten near to death by criminals in New York City, the biggest person that they can find to prosecute there is Donald Trump. He's the menace to society. And here again, I'm not defending him. He's said a lot of things. He's been his own worst enemy more than once. Yeah. Okay. But speaking of the person who's now sitting in the chair as president of the United States, listen to this soundbite. And apparently he said this twice yesterday. Oh, no. I don't have this. And today they walked it back. They walked it back. They said, well, he got caught up in the emotion.
Yes.
Because
he's present enough for that.
Yes. Here's Mr. Joe Biden talking about Ambrose Finnegan. Are you ready for this? Mm-hmm. Here we go.
Ambrose Finnegan, we called him Uncle Bozy. He was shot down. He was an Army Air Corps before there was an Air Force. He flew single-engine planes, reconnaissance flights over New Guinea. He had volunteered because someone couldn't make it. He got shot down in an area where there were a lot of cannibals in New Guinea at the time. They never recovered his body, but the government went back when I went down there and they checked and found parts of the plane and the like. And what I was thinking about when I was standing there was when Trump refused to go up to the memorial for veterans in Paris, and he said they're a bunch of suckers and losers.
I like that.
Can I just tell you? I mean, he's like, and I really do have respect for the office of the president. I really do. I don't hate Biden. I don't hate anybody. I don't have the energy for it. He looks like he's like a dead man standing.
Oh, and the clip I have coming up is even worse.
I mean, his energy is so low. He's paper thin. You know, I read auras, which probably sounds like woo-woo nonsense to you, Billy, but I pick up on people's energy, and his energy is paper thin.
I wouldn't say that. I believe in a lot of intuition, and you certainly have that. So I'm all for that. Yeah. Okay. Uncle Bozy, as he says,
the uncle that probably never dropped down into a cannibal-laden field.
Yes,
as soon as he came out of his mouth, I was like, okay.
My dear old Uncle Bozy, and his name is Ambrose Finnegan. But that sounds like a name right out of the movies from the 1950s. Ambrose
Yeah,
Finnegan
it
wins
is the whole
again.
name.
Yes.
As he smacks his gums. I mean, I feel like he's gonna take his dentures out any
Yeah.
second. They're swirling around.
He somehow makes this bullshit story connected to Donald Trump. Okay, which all right, sorry. All
I
right,
mean, that
fine.
was a stretch. If you ever heard, I was like, really? That's
Yeah.
the connection.
Now his claim was that Ambrose was eaten by cannibals in New Guinea after his World War II plane was shot down. Now this claim is contradicted by military records stating that the plane was lost at sea. And today, like I said, I don't have the clip and I haven't had time to get the exact words, but the press secretary and some other people walked this back a little bit, saying, well, you know, he was really passionate about the whole story. Yeah, he was passionate about the whole story. That's for sure. There's first of all, I don't know if I want to talk about cannibalism, but in New Guinea in particular, because of all the movies that have been out, you feel that there's just these like savages running amok and they'll just take you and eat you. That's not really, especially in New Guinea, what unfolded there. I can tell you that I think it was the 1930s, 1920s and 1930s. They were having pockets of death in their society, and some scientists and some doctors from around the world were invited into that area. And I didn't have to research this. I knew this because this is the kind of shit that I know. Totally worthless
Rabbit hole
shit.
you went down.
Yeah. There were like, there was somebody would die and then a whole bunch of people in that family would die. So they thought, oh my God, we have a contagion here. We have something going on. Okay. And they didn't want it to spread out of the country like other things. So they really delved into this. And what they found was that part of a funeral ceremony was that parts of the brain were eaten. Now, I got to tell you that brains in particular, I don't care if they're brains of a cow or whatever, are always disgusting to me. So the idea that this is cannibalistic is really over the top. But what was happening, the reason that there seemed to be a contagion spreading was because one member of the family would die and they would participate in this ritual and then a bunch more would die. Now, this is because of a disease. Cannibalism is actually dangerous. Okay. And especially regarding brain tissue. There's a disease called Kuru. And what Kuru is caused by an infectious protein. I believe it's called prion, something like that, which is found in contaminated human brain tissue. And Kuru is very deadly. This is something that's okay when it's in your nervous system, but you don't want it in your digestive system. Okay. And these people were dying of Kuru.
Yeah.
Okay, because of doing this. So that's kind of the legacy of cannibalism in New Guinea. Now I know that there's been a lot of stories in more modern times about things happening there, and there very well may be. I'm sure there's some really horrible things happening around there. But this idea that it's one of those movies that
the statistical odds of him landing in a
it's
field of
zombie
animals,
nation.
and how do we even know that he was found? I mean, I don't understand how that works. Like, how do we actually know that this man that I'm assuming they never found his body, but how would you know?
You don't know if he went down in the sea. He was just lost at sea.
Yeah, that's my point. It doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, and the ocean, especially the Pacific Ocean, is really big. You know, we talked about that airliner that it's been 10 years now since it disappeared there in Malaysia. People say, how can a whole plane disappear? I saw a picture of the Earth from space over the Pacific Ocean, and it was almost entirely a ball of water.
Mm-hmm.
That's how big it is. All right. And if you've ever been over the ocean, especially like, in a plane when you're really, and you can look down, I mean, it's not like Laguna Beach. That ocean is hell. I mean, there's gigantic waves, massive undercurrents, miles deep. And it's literally the size of one side of the entire face of the earth. Okay, it's very easy to understand how an airliner can go missing.
Yeah. I think for me, it was always like, how does something that big disappear from every radar around? Because I know there's some
Yeah.
technology we
Well,
don't
I
know
don't.
about,
Yeah,
but
I don't doubt that something screwy happened with that pilot, because there's been a
yeah,
number of things. There was a pilot in Europe somewhere just a couple years ago, died by suicide, and he locked the door and you couldn't
yeah,
open it because they were reinforced since the terrorist attacks, and the co-pilot couldn't get back in. So there's a lot happening. There's a lot of that we could speculate about, but let's just suffice it to say the ocean's very big, and he very easily
yeah,
could have been lost at sea. And it's not impossible that somebody could, they theorize, they kind of feel like one of the Rockefellers a number of years ago. This was like back in the 1960s, 70s. I don't recall. He was down in the Amazon somewhere or someplace. I'm
yeah,
not sure exactly where. And they think he might have been the victim of cannibal. So I'm not saying that this behavior doesn't exist, but it's not what it's presented to be.
yeah. It's not as common.
Yeah. Well, Idi Amin or somebody like that said a human flesh tasted salty. I remember yeah, I remember that quote. All right. We won't talk about that. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Shaman's getting really squeamish over here.
Oh, I'm just more like, oh, I
Yes.
don't get too squeamish too easy.
Jay Leno one time, remember the plane that went down and then they had a resort to cannibalism to stay alive. And okay, we got this guy over here, but here's Italian, we got French. All right. I know that's crude humor, but all right.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. Now I got another clip here for you. All right.
Oh no. It's getting
Biden,
really bad. I don't know if the Democrats really have understood. Maybe I think they know. They've had
they got to know, and I still suspect that they're going to pull something out of the hat.
Oh yeah, this is a power grab. That's all propping him up is a
Yeah.
power maintenance situation. That is what it is.
They're going to stick another face in there. I don't know if it's going to be Newsom or who, but
He's
anyway,
so not likable.
getting back to the what we talked about at the top of the program there a little bit about the war and how it's affecting things. As some of you, if you follow the news at all, I won't go through all the details because I'm sure you followed this. Iran recently attacked Israel, and in regard to a retaliation strike, Biden was making these comments. Now, he made the comment that he won't allow Israel to attack Haifa, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. But Haifa is actually a Jewish city. It's actually the third largest city in Israel after Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Now, you might in an ordinary situation forgive him for this because he might have got his wires crossed with Gaza, and there's a city in there called Rafah. Okay, so you could say, all right, Haifa, Rafah, maybe he got him. But you look at this clip, and I don't care how much you're going to tell me Biden can still do the job. When you watch this clip, even when he is mispronouncing the name of the city that he is referring to, and he's actually telling Israel not to attack one of their own cities, he loses his train of thought.
Oh.
He loses his train of thought while making that wrong comment. So here he is. Here's Biden and what I just talked about.
And I made it clear to Israelis, don't move on Haifa. It's just not, anyway, I just, look what we did recently when Israel was attacked.
Oh my God, it's so.
Well,
And
anyway.
Billy, I have to say, this is the thing that upsets me when I see stuff like this. Have you tried to have a conversation with a Democrat? And I have a lot of friends who are Democrats, and
Yeah,
I
sure.
try to talk to them about the situation, and they are incapable of acknowledging how bad it's gotten with him.
Oh yeah.
They literally
I mean,
pretend as though I'm making. He's fine. I'm like, have you seen him on fucking tape?
oh
He's
yeah,
not
he's the man.
fine.
Yeah,
He
he's
can't
the
keep
man. He's just
the president of the United States is the global leader, and he cannot keep a straight thought.
Yeah.
That is embarrassing for the entire country. And I have so much respect for the office of the president, but these are truths, and we will not change for the better if we're not capable of getting to a place of speaking truths. He's not prepared to be
No.
president for another 4 years, period.
No, I mean, I don't care. And I hear again, nothing mean spirited towards him. I've said it on other programs. If
This
you're
is
new
nothing
here,
about him as a person. Like,
no,
this is about his presentation is not presidential.
if I was like that, like what you just saw, I'd want to be on the back porch,
Yes.
sipping some tea, playing catch with the dog, spending the weekends with with the grandkids, not having the pressure of being the leader of the free world. And I don't know how anybody can tell me that not only is he fit now, but he's going to be fit for another 5 years. I mean, if you consider the amount of time we have to the election and then to the January that follows after the next, that he is going to be good for another 5 years. Are you kidding me?
Which is why I really think they've all literally made this not subconscious, whatever you label it. I really believe that they've all said, look, we need to stay in power. And this is the only option that we have that's feasible, that will pretty much guarantee that we stay in power. So let's all just force it through. And then Joe or, Jack or whoever the next guy in our girl in line is to take power, we'll put them in, we'll get it all fixed. There's no other explanation, because too many of them are incapable of acknowledging how bad it's gotten. The only explanation for that is they know, but they don't care, because this is all about power.
Yeah. Yeah. These are very interesting times. I feel here's the talking points. You want to know what the talking points for the next election are going to be? Here's the strategy right here. It's this simple. For Republicans, it's going to be the border. Okay. And for the Democrats, it's going to be abortion. Those are going to be the two kryptonite issues that both of them are going to part.
People's food has gone up 50% in 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are the things that they're going to use to stoke the American public. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I don't understand if I was a Republican strategist, why you even get involved in abortion, because it is something, there was no blue ray. Okay. There was none of that. This is a classic case of be careful what you want. You just might get it. Okay. You chased Roe v. Wade. You got it. And I'm telling you, they are going to bring out women's rights issues like Cleopatra at that Democratic convention. And the Republicans hand that issue to the Democrats every single time. It's a social issue. I've said before, if you're a Republican, small government, right? I don't want the government in my way. Okay, well, I don't want the government standing between a woman's legs while the gynecologist is trying to look in there. Okay,
we have no body autonomy, and that's the thing that nobody seems to really understand. How do we live in an equal society when 50% or 51% of that society does not have the ability to make decisions about their body?
Yeah.
If the shoe was on the other foot, we would not be having this conversation.
No.
It's not about what you personally think. It's about body autonomy, the ability to make decisions about your own health without somebody else intervening. Yeah. It's insanity, and it is going to what it's causing. It's one of the main issues that is causing the decline, the birth rate decline in America, because women are like, you know what? I'm just so sick of the fucking patriarchy. I'm so sick of being told what to do. How about this? I just won't date. I won't go out, I won't get married, and I won't have children. And the statistics prove that. And now that's a global trend, but here in America, it's actually we don't have enough people to take care of the people that are going to have to retire. Like, the Republicans are really shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, they are. And they're going after something that, here again, can only it's not going to help them. It's not going to bring any more new folks to you, because the people that are staunchly pro-life, you already have.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to be respectful to the people who are pro-life. I respect your opinion about the sanctity of carrying a baby and all this. I really and truly do. But it comes with a lot of other stuff. It comes with a lot of things like having to ask, having to get a permission slip from your husband to get any type of medicine involving birth control. Okay, that wasn't we're not talking about that happened. Something that happened when General Grant was president. Okay, in the 1870s. This was in the 1970s. Mm-hmm. Okay? This is something where your stalker can be armed with the notion that if he rapes you and gets you pregnant, you are going to have that baby. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
women are dying, and that's the thing that the right, the pro-life
Mhm.
people will never talk about is the number of women who are dying because they're being forced to deal with situations now that they shouldn't have to
Yeah.
because they can't get a procedure that is a medical procedure done. It's
Mhm.
insanity. You know, something interesting, Billy, that I found out. So that Arizona bill that they passed, or that they revitalized abortion ban, that was originally ushered in by a man who had 3 wives who were 12,
Mm.
14, and 15. He was a notorious, child molester. That's what that is,
Yeah.
so the Republicans revitalized a bill that was originally ushered in by a child molester, and it's like,
Mhm.
"Congratulations, you guys, you're just shooting yourself in the foot," and it may
Yep.
not show itself now, but it's really gonna show itself in their numbers, in the
It
coming
already
years.
is, and it's not getting spoken about, but it already is.
Yeah.
And here again, I want to, if you're pro-life, that's fine. I respect you. I really and truly do respect your opinion on this. It's an issue that has no clear answer, and that is exactly why Republicans should be staying out of social issues. Anytime some leftist makes a remark about women having full-term abortions, or there's some radical leftist LGBT stunt out there, the Republicans always go for the red meat. They go for it every single time. They simply cannot resist. And all it does is make them look like they are,
Dated.
radically on the right, dated, religious fanatics. And here again, if you're a woman that is pro-life, that's fine. Are you okay with a bunch of old men making decisions about what's happening between your legs? And these old men haven't even gotten it up, let alone gotten laid in the last 20 years.
And they're
And
also not offering to take care of these children they're forcing women to keep, especially the
you,
ones that are or they're not taking care of the hospital bills, they're not taking care of the
you know
long-term
what?
care of like, it's just insanity when you really think about it. They wanna tell
What
them what to do, but not do anything to help them in those
exactly?
situations.
What I would like to do is, if I was in politics right now, is call their bluff. I'd say you're absolutely right. The sanctity of life is most important. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass a bill that the moment that child is conceived, it gets health care, and it gets health care till after it's born, and it gets health care up until the time it's 18 years old. All on us, because we need that once that dick goes in there and that egg gets fertilized, it's sanctum, it's absolute sanctity. We have to protect it, so we should give it health insurance. And those same people that are talking about the sanctity of human life would go onto the floor onto convulsions and say, no, when that baby's born, it can get a goddamn job and get its own health insurance. That's
It's
what the
interesting that a lot of pro-lifers are the same people that are pro-death penalty.
yeah. I you
Just
know
saying, I guess it all depends on who you are.
It all depends on who you are. I gotta say, I don't really see. I know that gets brought up a lot. My own personal opinion, I'll defend him in this regard, because I don't really have a lot of opinions or feelings one way or the other about the death penalty. But when you look at some of the heinous crimes that are happening right now, I don't equate that with an innocent baby. I just I can't do it. And I got to tell you my own feelings on this. I'm past the age now where I'm going to be fucking anybody that's going to get pregnant, if I'm even lucky enough to get it up at that time. Um,
God.
but but I would have a hard time facilitating an abortion. I would, and that's my own personal view. My own
Yeah,
personal
and everyone should be able to have one and be able to express it safely.
yeah. I
It's
mean
okay to have an opinion about it. The problem is that the opinions are being projected onto to 50% of the population.
yeah.
And women still aren't paid the same as men. Like, it's 2024 and we have so many big issues. Like the fact that women tend to be the breadwinner in their homes these days. They tend to be the ones taking care of the children. Most of them are not getting huge chunks of money from their exes, and yet they're still paid 20% less, and nobody will ever talk about that, particularly the men who hold these political offices that want to tell women what to do with their pussies, excuse my French.
No, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, these guys who like I said, probably haven't seen a pussy, for lack of a better term, in 20 years, haven't even been able to get hard to play with themselves in 20 years, are going to tell women what to do with their reproductive health. And I think, and here again, I don't know why Republicans, if I was advising Republicans, I would say stay out of social issues. Concentrate on small government, low taxes, strong military, all the pro-gun, pro-First Amendment, all the things that everybody loves, and stay out of that abortion shit.
Yeah, I think that the problem is they're in this catch-22 where they don't. It's like they can't build the house they need to build for the future because they don't have the base there, and the base that they have there is very much anti-abortion, and so they don't know what to do because they can't get off their asses and just bridge that gap and just say, make that choice, make the hard choice, because they're hardcore members that fund their party tend to be religious. So I think that they're literally watching themselves die, and they don't know how to get out of it.
I would say my advice to the Democrats would be you should have got a better candidate. You've had 4 years, and all you've done is talk about how terrible Trump is and thrown everything but the kitchen sink at him, and you haven't cultivated a candidate. You had 4 years to come up with another Barack Obama. You had 4 years to come up with another Bill Clinton, and the best that you can come up with is Trump is bad. Yeah. So if you end up losing,
Biden's okay.
And he's fine. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's I like that little ending there on that clip. That was
the what?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I swear to God, it feels like the teeth are just gonna pop right out, and he's gonna get in the rocking chair and just be like, I'm gonna, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm really not, because I don't actually dislike him. I really don't. I just don't have the space and capacity for it. But it's appalling that we're sending this man all over the world to represent this country, and he can't string a sentence together without sometimes losing his thought. It's getting to be Mitch McConnell territory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of these days he's going to freeze just like that.
There's something
is going to happen.
Yeah. No, I'm actually concerned for his health.
I am too, and I think what he shouldn't be being put through what he's and really, if you go back and look at the clip of Trump and of the two Biden clips, completely. I mean, Trump isn't the same guy he was in 2016 either, but he's obviously lucid. He's obviously he knows where he is. So I don't know what to tell you, Shaman. Before we wrap things up, they introduced another bill for TikTok. This TikTok bullshit.
It's such bullshit. You guys, American people, you should be up in arms. Really. Like, let's stop acting like, people with PTSD as citizens, because we can't continue to let these things happen and just like, oh, look, it's actually happening. They're burying another ban on TikTok, another dismantling of their biggest threat, because they hate the fact that American people are actually talking to each other and that movements are actually happening. And if companies are being affected, the people who pay them off are being affected by the American people talking to each other. That is the reason why they want to ban TikTok. And they have buried another bill in a spending bill that is about sending aid to 3 countries that are, dealing with major conflicts. What the hell does a ban on TikTok have to do with fucking wars going on in other countries? The fact that they can even do that, to me, if it is not relevant or kosher to the actual germane, to the actual thing that the spending is being passed for, I don't understand why that is even possible. How are we still allowing that crap?
Yeah.
And this is really all about shutting up this kind of the kind of discourse that Billy and I have here on the show every Thursday night, where we speak the truth and we share our honest opinions, and we're middle of the road, and we're just like, can we just fix some of this shit? Like, this is the kind of conversation that's going on every single day in places like X and TikTok. And they because they can't control X, they're trying to control TikTok. And you should be pissed about that. I'm pissed about it.
I am. I really do, and this idea that it's national security. I mean, I suppose you could tie some things together there, but there's a problem with any type of technology. I would strongly recommend you do some research into some of the Ed Snowden interviews, and some of the other interviews that are out there about what's going on with surveillance right now. I've said for a long time that I felt even when your phone is turned off,
Oh yeah.
it,
Oh yeah.
it can still and some of the things I've heard online here recently say that even if you manage to take the battery out of the damn thing,
Yeah, they can still.
it still has enough juice in it to monitor you.
I got shadow banned for a very long time for telling people 10 over 10 it was over 10 years ago. I told them that their phone was being turned on, that their mics and cameras were being turned on, and people said I was, "You okay, girl?" And I was like, "No, I'm just trying to warn you that you don't seem to realize this is true." And here we are with people still doubting it. But haven't you noticed when you go back on your phone after having a conversation, you get an ad about
Yes.
the very thing you just had a conversation about
Yeah.
without your phone turned on? How do you think that
Yes.
magic happens?
It's beyond coincidence. I mean, it might be
Oh,
a
it's not a
coincidence once or
coincidence.
tise. Yeah,
It's
but it happens
eavesdropping,
all the
yeah.
time.
And
Yes,
why
it
aren't they
happens all
doing
the time.
something about that? The
Yes.
fact that our phones are listening devices in every single American's homes doesn't seem to bother the politicians, but let's get rid of TikTok.
Yeah. Right now, as we speak, the IRS is using AI and a lot of other things to make sure you're paying all your taxes. Okay. You make a measly $600 deposit. I think that's the thing that catches the feds now, $600. You make a measly $600 deposit in your checking account, and they want to know where that money came from. Okay. Yeah. And the biggest problem is Donald Trump. You just keep that, just remember that the biggest problem is Donald Trump, fucking whoever he was fucking. Okay. That's what's infringing on your rights right now. Not what's going on with your bank account, not what's going on with your phone, not what is going on with anything that you used to think was private 10, 15, or 20 years ago. None of that is a problem at all. Donald Trump is what's threatening your life. All right. And here again, it's not because I'm defending Trump. I'm just saying that is the reality that we're in right now. That
Yeah,
is where things.
we give just as much shit to both ends.
Yes, we
Just on this episode, we're giving a shit for this particular.
Yeah, we
one.
picked a hell of a time to go live on LinkedIn. I'm probably going to get a lot of.
Oh
Yeah.
shit! And I'm dropping
Yes,
P bombs and F bombs.
yes,
and
it's Shaman's fault to send the hate to Shaman.
oops.
That's all right.
Well, hell, my book says
you
the
can
F
handle
bomb on it. So
yeah, you can handle your. I'll tell you what. There's probably a few people on LinkedIn watching this, but here's the people on LinkedIn. All right, here's the typical attitude I get from people on LinkedIn. Hey,
yeah.
You want to get laid? Oh, dude, I don't know what my ROI is. I don't know about this getting laid thing until somebody tells me what my ROI is. If you can't tell me what my ROI is, I ain't doing it. That's
Yeah, it's very conservative, but the guy
yeah.
who founded LinkedIn is a huge Republican. I think it's a Republican. Is it Republican? Oh, I'm confused.
I don't
Either
know
way,
much. I know it's owned by Microsoft now, which means that's probably why it's no fun. Nobody pays any attention to it.
Well, I think that in that situation, that's a pay to play situation there, just based on the numbers. But I have a lot of great people on LinkedIn, so I like it. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I there's some great people on it. And there's great people everywhere. That don't mean the platform's good. I got to tell you, I'll say this: if you're on LinkedIn and you're offended by anything that we said, I'm glad we woke you up. Okay, welcome to the party.
Yeah. That's BillyDees, and I'm Shamanisis, and we speak the fucking truth. And we drop a lot of cuss words.
Oh, and I gotta, if you missed, I had 2 weeks ago, I had a really big episode. It got, hundreds of thousands of listens, and I got a lot of hate, and we did some mean tweets.
That's awesome, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Doing something right when you get a lot of hate.
Yeah, the hate is the best part. I mean, the hate, and then what got me was the people that were subtweeting the episode were giving me more listens in the process of telling me that I was an asshole. So and they actually did more to drive my stats than the people who liked it. Yeah, the people who liked it wouldn't retweet it or anything. They're worthless friends I got. But anyway, all right. Very good. Said a lot of things here today. Hey, if you have an opinion about this, tweet Shaman. Her screen name is right there at Shamanisis.
I can
Shaman. Tell people what you're up to while we're closing out here.
Yeah, you know what? I'm still, sharing Memory Mansion, my book, which, as you know, became a bestseller, and so I'm sharing that story with other people, so that if they want to learn how to completely change their life, they can. And Soul Tech magazine, I'm so excited. Issue 2 is coming out soon. It's the Goddess issue, and I did a really sexy cover for it, so I'm really excited about that. And so, yeah, go, you guys check me out on social media under at Shamanisis. And if you want free content, my newsletter, Soul Tech, and the magazine goes free to my newsletter readers. So go to soultech.world and sign up for the newsletter.
That would be fantastic. My name is BillyDees. You can find me on X at BillyDees. That's kind of like my social media home. And a lot of the updates and things that we're doing with the podcast are you can follow right there. A big RFK Jr. following is starting to amass in my circles on X. And I got to tell you, if it came down to voting against Biden because you don't like him, or voting against Trump, it would make very perfect sense to actually vote for somebody.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think RFK Jr. is worth your time. If you've
Yeah, I
heard a lot
agree.
of these stories, how he's anti-vax nut and all this, it's not true. You get into the details of this, and that's something that we don't have patience for as a society, is nuance. So that's the type of thing you can be following on my X account. We are going to cover that in more detail as the weeks go on here with the podcast, Shaman and I. So, here again, if you go on any major platform, the podcast is there. We are on all of them. So whatever you listen to podcasts on, subscribe. There's no fee for subscribing to the podcast, and that's kind of my kind of mantra. I don't like feeding off of the listeners. There's not exclusive content that you got to pay for. There's not this, that, and the other thing. The money streams come from elsewhere. So not from the people who listen to the program and enjoy it. It's always absolutely free. So follow me at BillyDees on X, and be sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. Got it out. All right, Shaman, thank you very much for another great show. And thank you to the audience. We will be talking to you again very, very soon. Have a great evening.
Thank you for listening to the BillyDees podcast. Follow BillyDees on X at BillyDees for updates about the program.